What is good? What is up? It's Jordan or Texans Thoughts, and I'm back with another live stream. And today we've got a special guest. You guys know who it is. It's the Zach Hicks. His link is in the description for his Twitter, so you can find all his stuff. He covers the Colts and the Broncos for Sports Illustrated. He's a great friend of mine, a film guru just like me, draft expert. And so we brought him here today to give a lot of insight into multiple things. Number one of the Texans' potential head coaches, and number two, the draft. The Senior Bowl is next week, and I'm super excited to be going to that. And Zach has been doing a ton of work on these prospects as well, so I'm excited to pick his brain. How you doing, Zach? Thank you for joining me today. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, it's always good to see you guys too. Definitely my second favorite fan base when it comes to the AFC South. Always appreciate jumping on. You guys have always been amazing. Every time I come on here. I do love the intro, the countdown and all that. I feel like we need to do something more epic though when we enter the screen. Like it's very much like an epic countdown, and then it just shoots our faces. We're like,
hey,
like we gotta get something more epic. We gotta like jump into the frame.
We do. I think we have a big explosion, and then we jump into the frame.
I would time it wrong so that I would jump in like a second too early, and then I'd just be.
we would make it awkward. We find a way, but it's all good. All right. Yes, the people absolutely love you. They absolutely love you every single time. Joey Texas, my guy, thank you for the $20 already. He says hello. Welcome, Zach. Big Money Matt with the $100 already. God damn, he knows how to open the show. I appreciate you, my guy. So yes, randomness. We're gonna be going through a bunch of Senior Bowl prospects today, so make sure to hold on to that for 1 second. We'll answer you guys' questions. We'll give you guys thoughts. Make sure, smash the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. We got a Cowboys podcast in here. Let's go. What was Ryan saying? Can we get both Zach and Lauren in the same stream? Lori, you mean Lori, Ryan? I want to do that. I want to do a big AFC South thing with you, Lori Fitzpatrick.
Oh my gosh, Lori Fitzpatrick's way smarter than me. It runs circles around me. Okay, look, we gotta keep my ego up a little bit here.
Fair enough. We'll protect you, Zach.
Anytime, man. Lori's awesome.
Yeah, she is for sure. All right, let's do this. Let's give the people what they want. What I wanted to start with is kind of the talk of what a lot of Texans fans want to know, and that's who the hell is our next head coach going to be? And so we've interviewed Josh McCown, we've interviewed Jonathan Gannon, Brian Flores, Kevin O'Connell, some other guys. I mean, some guys that you just wouldn't even expect would get a head coaching position, like Hines Ward. So it's been an interesting head coach search for sure. And there's been a lot of recent reports saying that Jonathan Gannon is one of the front runners for the position. And so you guys mainly know him as the DC for the Eagles last year, but he spent, I believe it was the 3 years before that, as the DB coach for the Colts. And so Zach can provide a lot of insights into Gannon. And what are your thoughts on him, Zach? You think you'd make a good head coach? And what were your kind of overall impressions of him with the Colts?
Yeah, so Gannon was someone who was kind of talked about as a future defensive coordinator for a long time with the Colts, even though, even when he first got to Indy, it was like, oh, he's a future defensive coordinator, maybe a future head coach. The league was always kind of very high on him. We definitely saw it this past year. I mean, I know when Sirianni took over in Philly, there was kind of a fight for Gannon among a lot of new hires. Like a lot of people wanted Gannon as their defensive coordinator. Now, was the defense in Philly good enough to warrant head coaching looks this year? Maybe not. I mean, he did some good things, some decent things, but I just know that since his time started in Indy, there was always talk of him moving up the ladder. I think he was in Minnesota before.
Yep.
So he comes from that Zimmer tree, and people love that Zimmer tree when it comes to coaching hires. But yeah, I think he's a good coach. I think he did an admirable job with the Colts DBs. Obviously, James Rowe, I think, kind of built on that and had an even better year as the cornerback coach for the Colts. But Gannon, like you were saying before we recorded, speaks well. Players love him. The league loves him to death. I'm not sure how he would be as a head coach, though. I've only really seen him as a position coach, and it always was kind of more. And this isn't me trying to talk bad, but it was always more. The hype was a little more than what I thought the production was with the.
Interesting.
Because again, James Rowe comes in, and immediately when James Rowe comes in, you have Kenny Moore, that probably has his best year as a Colt. Kenny Moore makes the Pro Bowl. Rock Ya-Sin doesn't look like a bust anymore. Rock Ya-Sin looks like a legitimate cornerback one. And then a special teamer in Isaiah Rodgers steps up, and it looks like a really, really good corner. Now, I'm not saying this is Gannon's fault that none of these guys look like this before.
Right.
But, you do kind of look at it. It's like, okay, I mean, the second this highly hyped up guy leaves, they bring in some college guy who only had 1 or 2 years in the NFL. All of a sudden, this group is producing. Now, again, that doesn't speak to someone being a head coach candidate, good or bad. But it's really the biggest observation I was able to make from it. I do think Gannon seems like a smart guy. The league's really high on him, so it's better than Josh McCown or Hines Ward. Those are some interesting head coaching looks.
Very interesting. Yeah, no, I appreciate your insights on that. I feel like you always give a very balanced take on things, very realistic take, and so. Yeah, that's kind of my thing with Gannon as well. I feel like he wouldn't be my first choice, but I wouldn't be too upset if he were to be our head coach. I feel like there's enough to like there. I like his scouting background. That's how he came up through the league. And it kind of, as a head coach, I feel like, especially if you're a head coach that is going to have say in personnel and obviously saying who's starting and whatnot, having a guy with the scouting background who knows to have like an eye for talent, that's going to be huge, and be able to communicate with his scouts on kind of what types of players he's looking for, stuff like that. So I think that's really, really interesting. And like you said, like he seems like a guy who's the league is higher on than kind of the general public consensus, just because we're not going to know everything about every single position coach on certain teams. So yeah, I think there's things to like about Gannon. And we'll see moving forward. I mean, the Texans are trying to keep things as quiet as possible. So we'll see.
Super quiet. I mean, all these other ones you hear so many rumors and everything, and the Texans, it's like, oh yeah, sometime past week, Kevin O'Connell interviewed. We don't know when. He was there, I guess. Like, when does that ever?
It's so weird. It's very weird.
Get, like O'Connell's agent to leak that out there. It's interesting. I'm shocked that they're keeping it so hush-hush. And it's a little annoying for me because so much on that defensive staff could be coming to Indy with their connections to Indy. Lovie Smith, obviously, if he's not sticking around and with the Texans, would be a pretty obvious fit with the Colts as defensive coordinator. So there's so many things I'm like, I don't know what's going on over there. But you know what? Sometimes it's better to keep it quiet and hush-hush. And hopefully for you guys, they make the right choice there, because they definitely need to make the right choice.
It is a decision that they cannot mess up again. I mean, most GMs do not get a third chance at a head coach hire. So Nick Caserio right here, he's got all his marbles on this damn decision, and he can't really mess it up. And maybe that's why he's going so secretive about it. I feel like that's kind of a in his mind a competitive advantage. If other teams and other media don't know what I'm doing, then that's good for Nick, right? So maybe that's their thought. But I agree. I mean, it's an interesting domino to fall, because Nick has, from everything we know as fans, like Nick wants to keep these coaches, these coordinators. He's high on Pep Hamilton. He's high on Lovie Smith. And so that's also part of the decision of which head coach that we're going to hire, because most head coaches want to bring in their own guys and they don't want to have their coordinator hired for them. But yeah, I agree. I think Lovie would be an interesting guy for you guys to replace Eberflus. Similar, basically the same system. And he showed some improvements over the course of the season. We were talking about it earlier. So yeah, I think that's an interesting fit for sure. But let's get on to Senior Bowl while we're here. We talked a little bit about the head coaching stuff with the Texans, but next week I'll be flying down to Mobile, Alabama for the first time ever. I'm super, super excited. It's literally like an event that I've followed for so long, for years. And so to be able to have the ability to go down there, have credentials to be a media person and be down there on the field and get to record the players practice and talk to them after, just interview them. It's going to be a really, really once in a lifetime experience. I mean, hopefully I can do it for the next few years, but definitely not taking anything for granted. So let's start it off. We're just going to go position by position. We'll start with offense, then we'll go to defense. So starting off, talking about some guys that stood out to us at the quarterback position group. Zach, who's the main guy? So I'll put up the rosters here, actually. I haven't used this platform in a while. share screen. There we go. Okay, so this is my own little Google Doc of Google Sheets of everything.
Nice.
But here's the quarterbacks. Sam Howell, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Carson Strong, Malik Willis, Bailey Zappi. And it's honestly a really interesting group to me because I know all the talk around this quarterback class is that it stinks. And that's not particularly false. It's not a good quarterback class, but this group in particular has a lot of good competition, in my opinion. I think there's some of the better prospects here. So Zach, who is the one quarterback out of this group that's kind of really stood out to you on film?
Yeah, I think when you kind of watch the film, I know maybe not the analytics because he's like a one-year wonder type guy, but to me, I think Kenny Pickett is head and shoulders above the rest of these guys, at least in terms of ready to play right away. The things that he does at the line of scrimmage, he controls the line of scrimmage. And I think the most impressive thing, because you'll see it with a lot of these guys, Matt Corral, even though he's not going to be down there, Sam Howell, they did not run NFL offense. They barely ran college type offenses. They were so RPO heavy and screen heavy. There's going to be so much of an adjustment to the NFL. Kenny Pickett ran that Mark Whipple offense perfectly. And we saw the results, nearly won the Heisman this past year, had a receiver that won the Blitnikoff. I think Kenny Pickett is the most poised player when it comes to the quarterback position. I think he's got good mobility, good accuracy, a good arm. He just checks almost every box except for the one that might get him killed when it comes to him. That's, having the hands the size of me. My hands are the size of it. It's a brutal thing right there, and that might hurt him. But I just think he checks off so many boxes. He's very safe. Teams will like that. Maybe he doesn't have the high potential of a Malik Willis. But for me, when it comes to who am I taking in this weak quarterback class, Kenny Pickett's the guy that I would kind of bank on as being a good NFL quarterback.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think he's the guy who definitely stood out the most. I guess saying who stood out the most is kind of a vague term, but he's definitely the most pro-ready guy for sure. He's a 5th-year senior or 6th-year senior, but he's got tons of experience. I believe it's over 40 starts at Pitt. And so he's seen a lot of different defensive coverages. He's been put in all these different scenarios where he has to figure out what to do. And he's got great mechanics. Like you said, he's got great poise. And the thing about him is I feel like he has the mental advantages, and he's not a bad athlete either. He's not a statue whatsoever. He's pretty good at feeling pressure, escaping, maneuvering the pockets, and making plays off script. So I graded him on my scale. My scale is a 70-point scale, which is kind of weird, but I don't know. My scale ranged from 1 to 7. That's how I grade it. With 1 being bad, just straight up bad, 2 being mediocre, 3 being below average, 4 being solid, 5 being good, 6 being very good, 7 being elite. And so he got a 54 out of 70 for me. I gave him a top 20 pick. I agree with you. I think he's the most pro-ready quarterback. And I guess the other person who stood out to me was, it's hard not to like some things that Malik Willis puts on tape. And he's pretty much the polar opposite of Kenny Pickett in terms of being not the highest floor guy, but the ceiling with the athletic traits, with the arm. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm not the hugest fan of player comparisons because I feel like a lot of the time they're put out there for mainly clickbaity reasons. But I feel like if you do them right and you explain them right, they're pretty useful. So with Malik Willis, I see a lot of Cam Newton to him, just from a stature, from an arm strength, from how physical he runs, how explosive a runner he can be. But he's a raw thrower, inaccurate. The mechanics with the upper and lower body aren't always connected. And so there's some bad misses, and there's also a lot of bad decisions. And so he even increases interceptions in 2021 from 2020. So he's got a lot to prove, I think Malik Willis does, but he also has the highest ceiling of any guy there. And so out of this group, I mean, I don't know about you, Zach, but is there anyone out of this group that you would spend a 1st-round pick on? Because I don't know if I would.
If I'm a mid to late first, I would definitely spend one on Pickett. If I had a plan going into the draft, a very specific plan for Malik Willis, I would consider him round 1. These other guys I probably wouldn't. Ridder doesn't really impress me too much. Howell and Corral, obviously he's not going to be here, but Howell and Corral are kind of the same guy for me. I think they're more day 2 types. Carson Strong, if the knee wasn't so awful.
If the knee wasn't bad long term, man, he's got a lot to like.
I think I'm just gonna call him the if guy quarter. Like his name is just gonna be if for me because if you were Ken Swanson, the guy who's doing quarterbacks for the draft guide I'm working on, put it perfectly, and I've been quoting this on every radio or podcast thing I go on. If you put the 5 best throws from every quarterback in this class together, Carson Strong might have the 5 most impressive ones.
Yeah.
Like they might be the 5 most impressive throws of all these quarterbacks when it comes to anticipation, hole shots. He does it all. It's just he's a statue in the league that doesn't like statues anymore.
Yeah, he
doesn't have an amazing arm. It's a fine arm. It's not great. And then the knee it could be Todd Gurley level awful, like in terms of like degenerative. So we don't know. Yeah. There's a lot of issues with that, but I think pocket movement, pocket awareness, accuracy, anticipation, the way he layers throws and attacks the middle of the field. I think he's one of the better prospects at the quarterback position. It's just there's so many question marks that I'm terrified to go all in and say I like him.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I think similarly to what you said about Pickett and being kind of pro-ready and having control of the line of scrimmage, that's what's really stood out to me about Carson Strong. Watching his Nevada film, I mean, he's constantly making adjustments at the line, constantly getting the offense into different formations, different play calls. So that mental aspect, I mean, it kind of leads me to compare him a bit to Mac Jones. Just because of the command of the offense that he has, the mastery of the offense, and like you said, not being most fleet of foot guy, but having kind of good pocket feel to maneuver it a little bit. I wouldn't say he's as good as Mac Jones, and then definitely like you said, the knee is worrisome. But I guess before we move on, really quickly, if you have a sleeper out of this group, who would it be? Because I think mine would be Bailey Zappi out of Western Kentucky. He broke a lot of. He's got some, I guess, competition questions you could say that he needs to answer because a lot of the time he's thrown from a really clean pocket. His guys are wide open and he's just kind of facilitating the offense smoothly. But would he be your sleeper as well out of this group, or you got someone else for us, Zach?
I feel these other guys are so talked about that he's the only one that even fits that mold whatsoever. Personally, I'm not a huge fan. I think he's more of a Shrine guy in most years. Not to speak poorly on Shrine did a great job with who they grabbed, but I think he's more of like a late day 3 type. I'm not a huge. I think an average arm, gimmicky offense. He misses some throws here and there. Like I don't know. I just see like the Senior Bowl quarterback who looks really unimpressive every year and then goes like late day 3, like an Anthony Gordon type, like. I don't know.
Wow.
Anthony Gordon, but like Case Keenum type too. Like he could grab a spot in the NFL for a bit, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan. Hopefully he surprised me. I always root for all these guys to have success, but I mean, if you're talking sleeper, he's the only one because these other guys are talked about so much. I mean, there's probably 7 guys in this class that are being rotated around as quarterback 1 through 7. And he's the only one in this group that's probably not in that top 7. So he would have to be the sleeper.
Sleeper by default. All right.
Exactly.
All right. Apparently we got a coach. I don't know who our coach is yet, but
I haven't seen an update, but
I don't know. I think they like to mess with us. But let's move on to running back. This was a pretty good position group. There's a little bit of everything, a little bit of whatever you kind of want, you can kind of look for and pick up. So, Zach, who's the guy who stands out the most to you on film?
It's definitely James Cook. I don't know if he will be an every down type, but he just screams like strong committee back that can. I mean, it's hard not to see him and say Dalvin Cook just because he looks like him and everything there. I mean, he looks like him the way he runs and everything. It's very, but he's not a Dalvin Cook level prospect. He's a little bit smaller. He's probably not an every down back type. But when it comes to the NFL, so many teams are committee backs, like go by committee. I think if you get him in there with a bruiser type, you can have a really, really good committee, really good vision, really smooth player. I really, really like James Cook. I think he's probably RB1, maybe up there. There's a couple guys that I like
Yeah.
at running back, but he's definitely in contention for RB1 in this class.
I agree. I think it's really tough to separate those top guys. For me, it's like you're fighting between Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller, James Cook, maybe Kyron Williams. I haven't watched Breece Hall yet, and everyone keeps telling me to watch Breece Hall, so I need to watch him for sure.
David Montgomery, you'll like Breece Hall because if you like Iowa State backs, you'll like Breece Hall.
Fair enough. I'll have to get to him, but yeah, no, James Cook really impressed me as well. I think his ability to impact all phases of the game. Like you said, as a runner, he's athletic, he's fluid. He can read zone, he can read gap power, and then it's the passing game. That's where he really makes his money as kind of a mismatch weapon, and he'll do it out of the backfield. He'll do it aligned out wide. So there's a lot to like with James Cook. I think I guess this is kind of a different. You know what? I'll save that for after, because I want to talk about the fullbacks later. But
yeah,
if there's one guy on this list, Zach, that you want for the Colts, who will it be? And then I'll give my guy later.
Well, it's tough with the Colts because I don't want them to spend anything more than like a 7th round pick on a running back. They're good at running back, but I will say it as the guy who I think is maybe a little bit later, who I think will surprise people in the league, and I think is probably my RB2 in this entire event is Tyler Batty from Missouri. I really like Tyler Batty. I think if a team misses out on Cook, Tyler Batty's the type that you want to go to. Very loose. He's a guy who, going into his last year with Missouri, he had to put on a ton of weight to be the full-time guy. So the weight that he played at, it's probably like 20 or 30 pounds more than what he wants to be at. And he still looked elusive, good out of the backfield, good eyes. I really like Tyler Batty. I think he's in the conversation for our like top 5 running back in this class. I'm really big fan of him, especially in a class that, you can say you love these backs and stuff, but outside of James Cook and Tyler Batty, it's a pretty plodding class. It's kind of a slow running back class.
Yeah.
It is. And when you have guys like Cook or Batty who are explosive and can kind of work in any kind of scheme, can be a really good committee back, that's the kind of guy that I would want to hang my hat on. So I really like Tyler Batty. I think he's being slept on throughout this whole process here. And obviously I don't want the Colts to take him unless he's there at the 7th round or something. But I'm a big fan of Tyler Batty.
For sure. Yeah, no, I liked him as well. He was a late addition to the Senior Bowl, but well-deserved because, like you said, the production, I didn't know about the weight thing. That's really interesting because he still looks like
small. If you look at his 2020 film, he was tiny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting because he moves pretty well. Like he's pretty electric. He's got some juice. I feel like he's a really good, like, I kind of like compare his like running style to like just like a slasher, kind of like he's just trying to go downhill really quickly, and he runs real hard. So I like him as well. For me, the one guy I would really like for the Texans to pick up is Abram Smith out of Baylor. I'm pretty high on him as like a early day 3 guy, because of his kind of just well-rounded skill set. First of all, he's a former linebacker who converted to running back, and he plays like it. Like he plays mean, he plays nasty. He's trying to finish every run, lower his shoulder. And so he's just a guy who's always going to add on extra yards after contact, always going to fall forward, always going to drive his legs, push the pile, and just get those extra yards that aren't blocked for us, because Texans offensive line, man, don't even get me started, man. It's got to be it's probably the worst, if not like bottom 3 in terms of run blocking. Like it's sad, and we pretty much only have Titus Howard. Who the hell knows what's going on with Laramie Tunsil anymore? So they need a lot of help, and we need running backs who can get yards that aren't blocked from them. So I really like Abram Smith from that perspective, and he's also a really good pass protector, and that's something we need out of our running backs as well. It's always valuable if you can impact all 3 phases of the game. Running back. So last thing I want to talk about the running backs, with the guys who really surprised me, and are my sleepers, I guess, is both fullbacks, Jeremiah Hall out of Oklahoma and Conor Hayward out of Michigan State. Starting with Hall, he's kind of this like all-around guy. He does some blocking, but he's a really good receiver, very good athlete, really good hands, body control to adjust to errant throws. So he's kind of like a poor man's Kyle Juszczyk. I mean, no one can really compare to Juice, but that's kind of the skill set that you're trying to get out of Hall. So I would keep an eye on him for for teams who want to use, a power running game with the running back. I know it's pretty outdated now, but I think you have a guy that can also make an impact in the passing game, that fullback really has some good value. And then Conor Hayward's interesting to me because he was a former running back, and he led Michigan State for a few, I think it was in 2019. Where is it? Let me pull it up. In 2020, he was second on the team in rushing yards. In 2018, he led them in rushing yards. So he was a pretty productive running back. And he kind of was always a bigger guy, kind of in that Le'Veon Bell body type, but he got it done, man. He has really good vision, smooth cutting ability, and now he's kind of bulked up to this tight end, fullback, H-back role, and he's a terror to tackle. Because, I mean, it might be hard to see in the photo because of the screen size, but this dude is a bulky guy. He's kind of built like a fridge. So he's an interesting guy as well to look out for. Have you given those fullbacks any look on film, Zach?
I've watched a little bit of Hall, mostly just kind of see him in the periphery. And my mind keeps saying Dimitri Flowers again every time, just because Oklahoma loves to use some fullbacks. They would spread him out wide and have him run routes, even though he's super stiff trying to run those routes from the slot because he's a fullback. But they would have him out there, they would have him in the backfield block, and they would give him some carries. It was really interesting how they used him. But yeah, I think he can be a solid fullback. And then Hayward, oh man, he's a blast. Yeah. I think a team's going to take him day 3. As long as they have a plan on what they're going to do with him, you have a very interesting player to add to your offense. So I'm a pretty big fan of Hayward. I'm excited for what he could do.
For sure. Yeah, he's just fun to watch run with the football because it's a guy that big shouldn't be running that fast. And so it's really, really fun. All right, let's move on to the wide receiver group. And I think this might be the best group. It's between the wide receivers and the tight ends for me, but this might be the best group down in Mobile. I think each guy has something that they bring to the table. And I just kept going down the list, and guys just kept shocking me. So we'll start with you, Zach. Who's the one guy who really stood out to you on film?
It's tough. I don't think we have that type of year where it's we have a Deebo Samuel type, right? Where it's Deebo's the guy. We all knew going down there, Deebo was going to rock some dudes and he was going to be the top dude. Or even a couple years ago, I think Terry McLaurin was the same year as him. We all kind of were excited to see Terry McLaurin work against those dudes too. I don't think we really have that type of guy, but I do really like Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. I think his film was a pleasant surprise because I was expecting just a big plotting receiver, because he's a big, I think he's 6'3", 200 something. I expected a Chad Hansen type, I know you guys know that.
Hey, no hate.
You know what? When I started saying that, I was like, oh, who's going to know what Chad Hansen is? But no, I forgot Chad Hansen played for you guys for a bit. So I was expecting a Chad Hansen type, but he's very smooth, very fluid. Some of his routes that he ran against Alabama in that game, I thought were extremely clean, and I was really, really impressed by that. He's a hard-nosed blocker too. Has a great yards per catch and gets down the field. Big time deep threat. So yeah, I think Alec Pierce for me, off the guys I saw, would actually be my top guy down there. I'm trying to
over
Dotson. Are you going to say Dotson?
Yeah, I feel like Dotson has to be it.
Did Dotson get taken off? I don't see him on here anymore.
Oh, did he? That would make a lot of sense.
Here he is. I got him.
Okay.
I like Dotson. I do. He's a little weird for me because I think he's a little smaller. Yep. And I don't think he's that explosive or fast to be a little smaller.
Okay.
I think he's good in both those areas.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's different for the NFL. I don't think it's they're going to look explosive and fast in the NFL. You're going to look good speed and you're going to be able to get open. I just don't know if he's going to win the same ways in the NFL. So I think Alec Pierce, his game translates a little easier immediately as an X, guy who can beat press pretty easily, really smooth guy, and then he can go up and get it down the field. I kind of see I don't want to say this comparison because I think Michael Pittman Jr. is a great player, but I kind of see the Michael Pittman Jr. type a little bit where it's in college he was more of a big play threat type, but he can get to the NFL and he can be an underneath and catch, and kind of run all the types of routes because he's very smooth. Interesting.
So yeah, that's really interesting to me because Alec Pierce is one of the few guys sorry, not one of you guys, but I watched his 2020 stuff and I haven't watched his 2021 stuff, and I wasn't too impressed with the 2020, but everyone who I respect as a draft analyst really likes him, so I got to go back and watch his 2021 stuff for sure. To defend my guy Dotson for a little bit, because I do think he's a top guy here.
I will say real quick, I did watch the only game I think I watched of Dotson. I think I watched two, but the one that I remember the most is when he had Mccreery trailing him.
Okay, yeah.
We'll get to Mccreery with the corners. He's an absolute dog. I love Mccreery, so it might have just been because I was so hyper focused on Mccreery being all over him that I was like, but yeah, I like Dotson. I don't see the top 30 or top 40 love personally.
Okay. Yeah, no, that game, I just watched that the other day as well. That was definitely Dotson's worst game. It was definitely Mccreery, man. Oh my, yeah, we'll get to him soon.
We'll follow up with him here in a few minutes. I love
for sure. Yeah. I guess if I were to give one guy in this wide receiver group that stood out to me the most, I don't think he's going to be the best guy in the Senior Bowl. I don't think he's going to have the best NFL career per se, but I think he's one of these guys who is kind of he's got the most to prove. He's got some question marks, but he could really be an interesting piece, and that's Velus Jones Jr. out of Tennessee. So he spent 4 years at USC, was kind of a backup, just mainly a kick returner, very productive kick returner. And then he transferred to Tennessee, and it was just his last season where he's actually kind of more of a prominent role and actually started games. So he doesn't have a lot of reps under his belt. And so he's kind of unrefined as a route runner, but this dude is a really, really good athlete. He's a compact build. And I know the league is going to be searching for the next Deebo Samuel, that type of wide receiver who they can just kind of scheme up touches for, get him in the backfield and just hand him off the ball. I think if there's anyone in this class, it might be Velus, and that's still reaching a little bit. I think he'd still be a very, very, very poor man's version of Deebo because he's not anywhere near the route runner of Deebo. I don't think he's as explosive as Deebo, but he's got that similar compact build where he just bounces off tackles. He's a really competitive runner, and so I really like Velus Jones as well. And then to finish this off, one guy I think I would want the Texans to draft is Khalil Shakir out of Boise State. He's a slot guy mainly. Play a little bit of Z as well on the outside, but I think super productive, just a really well-rounded skill set in terms of hands, in terms of route running, body control, yak. So he's a really interesting guy as well for me. Pierce is your Colts hopeful draftee, Zach?
I think he's up there on day 2. I like Calvin Austin though on day 3. I like what he can do with the ball in his hands. He's just so explosive and he's just so difficult to corral. A little guy, so tiny, but I just like the scheme touches that you can do with him. And I think he's going to be a day 3 type. So you don't have to spend too much high capital on him. I just like the potential of what he could be in an offense, even though I know that it's not going to be like an every down type of player,
Yeah. I kind of gave him a little bit of a comparison to Tavon Austin, just kind of that gadgety role. He's a legitimate track star. He has his set school records. He's a fast dude, maybe the fastest in the class. So he's very interesting for sure. I agree with you. All right, moving on to tight end. This is another pretty good group of guys here. And it kind of it gives you whatever kind of you want. You want an inline Y. You got guys like Charlie Kohler. You got Jeremy Ruckert. You want a playmaking F. You got Isaiah Likely. You got Calcaterra, Turner. If you want a hybrid, there's Jake Ferguson. I think Greg Dulcich is really good as well. So who's the top guy that stood out to you on film, Zach?
I go back and forth. I like McBride a lot, and I think most people are going to have him as tight end 1 in this class. But I think I'm going to go with Ruckert here, Jimmy Ruckert.
Okay.
I love his athletic ability. I think he's a really good athlete. I just don't think it was used often at Ohio State, but a big thing for me and McBride, I think McBride I'd probably have above him right now. I don't know. I go back and forth. They're both really good. But Ruckert, I love that they used him in so many different ways. He'll be the sniffer tight end on one role. He'll be the H-back on another. He'll be slot out wide. He'll be in line as the 6th tackle. They'll even do some tackle over stuff where he sticks as basically the tackle on the play. I love his ability. I love his versatility. I love his willingness to block. I think he's a good pass catcher that's really smooth and clean when he gets the opportunity. He's definitely going to be a better pro than what he was in college. So I really like Ruckert's upside. I go back and forth between him and McBride as tight end 1. McBride obviously has more production, but Yeah, I'm really excited to see Rucker down there. I think he can show more than what he was able to in college.
Okay. I hope so. I hope you're right, because for me, when I was watching him on film, I don't know, he didn't look like the greatest athlete. But when I was watching Ohio State, I was watching for those wide receivers, and so maybe comparing those wide receivers to Rucker, he looks like a
It's
turtle.
tough, man. You're the fourth option or fifth option sometimes
Yeah.
in that offense. The stats aren't going to look great. I just think there's a lot of flashes when he gets that opportunity where it's like, okay, he maybe not be a top tier tight end. 'Cause I think this tight end group is very solid. Like in this class, like you're going to have a ton of tight ends that stick in the league.
Yeah,
Out of
it's
this
deep.
class.
It's deep.
I just don't know if we're going to have like a stud come out of it. Maybe McBride could be that. McBride's very good, but I think Ruckert is a type where I would bet on his upside.
Yeah, fair enough. I think the guy who has like kind of the most potential is probably Isaiah Likely. Like you said, if there's going to be someone who's a stud, like him in that kind of just slot role, like don't ask him to block that much. Like he's actually not too bad of a blocker out in space, just on DBs, because he's competitive. But he has wide receiver traits, and it makes sense because he was a wide receiver before. So he might be one of those guys to, if there's anyone to kind of emerge as a star, could be him. My guy to bring up. He fits a lot of things for me. He fits the question of who stood out on film. He fits who's a sleeper and who do I want on the Texans. So knocking out 3 birds with 1 stone here. Greg Dolce out of UCLA. He's one of the few juniors who's already graduated, and so he can be eligible for the Senior Bowl. And he's a great kind of just all around skill set. He's a good athlete to run up the seam and put pressure on the defense that way. He's pretty good after the catch, where he's just competitive and pretty agile. And I was actually pretty impressed with his blocking ability. He's got a big, wide frame. He positions himself well. He's competitive. Like you can tell he cares. And so he'll drive his legs. He'll get nasty at the point of attack. So I like his all around skill set. And I think he's someone who can kind of separate himself, hopefully, this week in Mobile. All right, let's move it along, because we still got a lot of possessions to talk about.
We do.
We do. And we got the most important 2 right here coming up. To the trenches, Zach. Let's go. We'll start with the offensive line. Who's stood out to you the most on film?
It's tough, man. When we're going all offensive line here, I'm just looking at. I mean, there's so many guys that I think stood out to me that I enjoyed. Lacita Smith's a guy who I've been a fan of for a while, and friends with, actually. I really like Lacita. He's a great dude. Dylan Parham is a great athlete. I think he's a blast. I think it has to be Bernard Raymond, or I think that's how you say his name, right? Bernard Raymond. Yeah, Bernard Raymond. I think his film is up. Like it's not in the top 3 guys, but I think if you're going to the next best type, it's up there with the Pennings and Fiali, or however you say his name, Falele.
I don't know.
I don't know. But I think when you kind of get into that mix of guys, his film is just as good. Very good hands, I think, for a guy who made that transition over to tackle.
Yeah.
You could tell he's kind of got like a wrestler background too, the way that he plays. He's still very, very new to the position, but when you're looking at size, athleticism, mindset, I think he has all of it. So I think as of right now, for me, he's my 4th tackle in this class after the big 3.
Wow.
And I go back and forth with a couple guys, like I said, Penning and Fialo, whatever. Daniel is his name. I go back and forth between a couple guys, but I really like Raymond. I think his upside is through the roof, and it wouldn't shock me, if a team were to spend like a 1st-round pick on him, because he just fits the mold. Really good athlete.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I feel like he's kind of that ball of clay, that moldable ball of clay, where he even has the excuse of like why he's robbed, because he's new to the position. So it makes sense, and he has all the makings of a potential starting tackle. So I definitely see the upside with him. I think for me, my guy is Cole Strange out of Chattanooga. And he really, really impressed me. I feel like he's going to be that guy, that Senior Bowl riser, that interior offensive lineman who just makes a name for himself and everyone falls in love. The next Will Hernandez, Quinn Miners, that type of guy. Strange really, really stood out to me on film. I had no expectations going in. I had no idea who the guy was, never heard anything about him. And he was the best damn player on the field every single rep. I mean, he's got the athleticism to make reach blocks in zone. He's got the nastiness to finish his blocks, whether it's zone, whether it's gap or power. And so I really liked him as a run blocker, and he was pretty sound as a pass blocker as well with his technique, with his ability to anchor. So I thought he had a well-rounded skill set. I'd probably take him maybe round 3 as early as that. And I think the Senior Bowl is going to be a really big spotlight for him to answer the competition questions. Playing at Chattanooga, I mean, you're not going up against some SEC level. You're not going up against Jordan Davis, right? So to go up against guys like Travis Jones, Phil Mathis, like Perion Winfrey, Devante White, like there's going to be some dogs that he's going to have to square up against, and will really tell us a lot about it. But I like him a lot. So you gave us Bernard Raymond and Dylan Parham. I like Dylan Parham too. He's another guy who was a tight end, right? And so he's
tiny. He's tiny.
He needs to bulk up.
I was scared when I was grading him because I think Memphis's site has him at 285. And I'm like, that's not going to fly. That ain't going to fly. But no, he's a freaky athlete. So I like the upside there. Another guy I want to throw out there that I really enjoyed on film, who was a late ad, was Luke Fortner from Kentucky at center. 6'6", 300, good athlete.
6'6",
300 pounds. Yeah, at
center.
This past year. I think he played some right guard the years before. He's not great. I'm not going to say he's like this outstanding player. I think there are some areas where he can stand to improve. But when you're looking at a day 3 guy with that size, he does finish blocks. He's a really good mover. Gets that second level easy. I think he's going to stand out a little bit, especially the way he moves with that size down there. I was really happy when Senior Bowl added him.
Nice.
I mostly circled him as a shrine guy to watch. So when Senior Bowl added him, I was pretty excited about that.
All right, I'll have to check out his tape. I missed that late ad. All right, let's move on to D-line, and they break it up for us, edge rusher and interior. I don't know why they didn't do that for offensive line, but whatever. For the edges, man, there's some guys there, but I feel like after the top guys, I don't know, at least for me, it kind of drops off, and I don't know too much about like the depth guys are, I don't really want to take a bet on them. Who's the guy who stood out to you the most on film for the edge rushers?
There's the top guys. Obviously, there's like My Jai and all them, but I would say Boye Mafe I really liked off the edge. Mm-hmm. I think there's some really good untapped potential with him. But I think my favorite edge guy to watch in this whole class was Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah, I knew it.
Dude, I was like nerding out watching it. Like it was the most fun experience watching him play. I mean, it's 100 miles per hour every single play. Mm-hmm. It's amazing run defender. Honestly, he might have been
the best. Honestly,
he probably is the best run defender that I graded in this class. I mean, he competes his butt off every single snap. Really good athlete on top of all that. And I think that there are some moves in his toolbox that he's really good at. I think he's good at a spin move. I believe it was a cross chop that he was pretty solid with as well. He has a couple in his repertoire that I was really, really intrigued by. Definitely needs to add more as a pass rusher and grow as a pass rusher. Mm-hmm. The only real downside I have is I think he's like 24 or 25. I think he's an older dude.
Yeah. He did JUCO, then Georgia, then FSU, I believe.
Yeah. But his film's a blast. I mean, if you guys are looking for someone to really, really enjoy their film, I mean, man, he is a million. I mean, it's unreal how energetic and athletic he looks every single snap. It sucks that we couldn't see him at Georgia and stick at Georgia, but obviously the talent is what it is. I'm blown away by his film, and I'm super excited to see him down there.
Yeah, I think he's the most pro-ready in terms of run defense, especially definitely out of this group, and probably he's up there with Hutch and Kayvon in terms of the run defense for sure. So he's definitely an interesting guy to look out for. Like your concerns as well, especially with his age. I mean, how much better can he get as a pass rusher? Because most of his sacks are all cleanup sacks, coverage sacks, like when he's just unblocked. So that's what he's going to need to improve on to stick. I wonder if
I will say real quick though, really fun matchup to watch is him versus Akeem at NC State.
Okay.
They are exchanging. They're heavyweight fighters, just exchanging blows the entire game. He sends Akeem kind of flailing on a couple, and then obviously Akeem does what he does on a few other ones. But that it's one of the best matchups to watch if you guys want to check out a really fun game.
For sure. Yeah, I wonder if he's a candidate to move inside on passing downs stand and just utilize that length, that physicality. Maybe that'll be a better move for him, hopefully.
It'd be fun to see him like mug an A-gap or something like that and stand up over a center. That would be kind of interesting.
Exactly. All right, my guy out of this group that I would absolutely love for the Texans to pick up is Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State. Man, his film is so fun to watch because he is able to combine his length with pass rush technique, how he sets up his moves. He has this great move where he's gonna jab step outside and set up the inside kind of arm over move. That's his go-to, and he's got a few sacks off of that this season. I really like him. I think he can play as a gosh, I'm losing my train of thought, as a D-end or as an outside linebacker. The only thing with him is he kind of times the snap kind of poorly. It's not even really his explosiveness, because he's an explosive and athletic dude, but he's just always laid off the ball. And so if he can key the ball better, because I know he always keys the man usually, and if he can maybe switch that up, maybe that'll work better for him. But if he can do that, man, I think he can be a great starter. And I kind of have him as an early second round pick. He graded out really high for me. Just the combination of athleticism and technique, I really liked him.
I think I gave him a similar grade. I think it was a mid-second I gave him. So yeah, I agree. I think his upside's great. I think he's gonna be the perfect replacement for Jacob Martin when Martin comes to the Colts.
No,
Martin, Colts, you guys have a really good replacement there.
Oh my God! Don't do this to me, Zach. Don't do this to me.
We're gonna take Lovey, and then we're gonna take Jacob Martin. That's what we're gonna do.
I'll just become Colts thoughts then.
There we go.
That is what it is. Okay, quickly before we move on, I'm not going to explain it too much, but I really like Jesse Luketa as a sleeper. He's kind of this weird, like, I don't even know that much he's like an edge as much as he's more of like a Sam, like a 4-3 Sam, because really good run defender. He's got experience in coverage, but he's a raw pass rusher, but he just plays his heart out. Great motor, great energy guy. I didn't like Moon. I didn't really like Michael Clemens too much. I think Kingsley Enagbare is like the most overrated player in this entire damn class.
I think the issue with him is I don't know where you're gonna play Kingsley Enagbare. Like, he's really interesting. He's really weird with how he's gonna be played in the NFL.
Yeah, I think so too. I just don't see enough of in terms of, you know what? I can't get into it. We got to move on to the other guys. Interior D-line. I think this is a position of need big time for the Texans. I know we got Roy Lopez and everyone loves him, and I think he showed out pretty well, but I think we're going to lose Malik Collins in free agency, and we really need that 3-tech position to be shored up, especially if Jonathan Gannon is our head coach. So speaking of that, who's the guy who stood out to you the most on the interior defensive line, Zach?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I'm looking through the names here, and I really don't think I've watched any of these guys.
Wow.
Because here's the thing. Colt, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, and Taylor Stallworth came on this year.
You guys are set.
I don't really. I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, I mean, Zachary Carter, does he count? He plays.
He's a weird tweener.
Yeah, he's like Tyquan Lewis without the explosion. Or I guess Paschal is also kind of that too. I kind of look at both those guys the same way.
Yeah, they're clones. They're clones. They're the Spider-Man meme.
They are. I would say Wyatt, I enjoyed from what I saw of Georgia. I watched a lot of Georgia this year, hoping Nolan Smith would come out, and obviously that didn't happen.
I know.
Yeah, I like Devante Wyatt. I can't really speak too in detail with him, but because they rotated those guys so much.
They did
in there. But yeah, I'm going to let you have kind of the floor with this one here. I've not watched enough interior defensive linemen to BS my way through it on this one.
Yeah, no, that's all good. That's all good. I'll take it because this is, I think there's a lot of guys to like. I'm with you. I think Devante White's definitely the best of the group. I graded him as a late first. I think he's going to be one of those guys who like he measures, does some interviews, but he doesn't need to show much in terms of practice.
How weird is it that Wyatt is probably the third best interior defensive lineman they had at Georgia?
Yeah.
And you have him with late first.
It's insane, man.
Like
Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis.
Do you have Davis higher as a grade, or you have not done Davis yet?
So I did very, very close. I gave him 55, and I gave White a 53.
And then Carter's going to be even higher because Carter's an absolute freak.
Carter's the best of the bunch,
next
man.
year. Yeah, he
oh
is. Like next year, he'll be a top 10 pick. Like he's a stud.
The class next year, I mean, I just thinking about the top 5 between Will Anderson, both the quarterbacks, Jalen Carter, like who's the corner out of Georgia as well? Keely Ringo. Was he eligible? Would he be eligible? I don't know. But all right, let's get back on track to interior defensive line. Devante White would be a perfect 3-tech for the Texans to pick up if we have a second first-round pick, hopefully, or if he falls to the top of the second, that would be even better. I like Phil Mathis out of Alabama. Good gap control guy. If we end up switching to a 3-4, maybe Brian Flores is the move at head coach. Logan Hall really surprised me a lot.
Yes. I didn't know we were counting him as defensive tackle. Yeah, he's impressive.
He's kind of the guy here because his 2020 tape, I mean, I was like, this guy's a late day 3 guy. 2021, oh my God. I mean, I have him graded out as what? Second round pick. And there's some shades of Calais Campbell there. I mean, because of his length, because of his height, because of how he anchors the run. And he's got some really active and violent hands as well. So I like him a lot to impact the run and passing game. My guy out of this group is Neil Farrell Jr. I mean, LSU just pumps out these nose tackles, man. And he's a guy who I do not see. I don't even see him on the Draft Network's big board on their mock draft simulator. So I don't know where he's really going. But I have him graded out as a 3rd round pick. And I'm of the thinking of like, would I take Jordan Davis like top 15, or would I just go take Neil Farrell Jr. in the 3rd? Like, I'm going to take Neil Farrell Jr. in the 3rd because at the end of the day, he's a nose tackle who can really anchor the run. And yeah, he might not be great against the pass, but I know I can trust him versus the run. Really great pad level, gets off the ball, good arm extension. And so he's definitely my guy to look out for. I think he can play nose tackle. I think he can play 1-tech. I think he can play 4-eye as well in a 3-4. So I like Neil Farrell Jr. a lot. I think that's good for the interior defensive line. The rest of the guys were pretty meh. I don't like the tweeners in this class at all. Zachary Carter, Josh Pascal, not at all.
I don't like either of those guys. Like they graded really poor for me at my age ranking. I'm not gonna lie.
Exactly.
I think the Kentucky dude's my lowest rated edge guy at the moment. Like in the class.
He might be as well. I just did not understand the hype for him.
Yeah. Like I see people saying like top 100 guy, and I'm like, no, the top 100 player, baby.
Like, not at all. I don't know what they're smoking, but craziness.
He's not overly strong. He's not explosive. He doesn't have any bend. Yep. He's a tweener. Like, I don't see it. I don't see it at all with him.
I don't see it at all. Before I move on, Travis Jones, I like him a lot out of UConn. He dominated against Clemson versus the run and the pass. I think he's one of the few guys out of here that does it both. That does it all. Impacts the run and the pass. Got really active and violent hands and shows a good pass rush plan. So I like him as well. Let's move over to the linebackers as we're closing this out. This is an interesting linebacker class. I'll let you take it away, Zach. Who's the guy who stood out to you the most?
Yeah, this is a really, really interesting group here. I mean, I'm just looking through them again right here. You have your Quay Walkers and you have your Devin Lloyd's going to be down there.
Yep.
I mean, those are probably your top guys. They're studs. Beavers is a really fun college player. I'm a big App State fan. Marco Jackson, I've always enjoyed. But I think the guy who I'm most interested to see, and I don't know if I guess he stood out the most on film too because he was just great in college. Troy Anderson from Montana State. I mean, they had that big run this year. I believe they were the team that went to the FCS. Yeah, they went to the FCS championship game this year. And he's just a stud. Just did everything that you could ask on that defense last year. Really good mover. But the issue is, again, FCS. Is he going to come in here and look overwhelmed, or is he going to look like some other FCS guys who have come to the Senior Bowl and really raised their stock? Like Jeremy Chin.
Yeah.
These guys go down there and they all of a sudden, Darius Leonard is another guy, FCS linebacker who really raised his stock. I don't know if he's in that kind of category with those guys who all went in like round 2, but I like his film a lot. He moves really well. He's a really smart player. I'm really excited to see how he looks with, when you have, Bernard Raymond coming down on you or something. How are you going to look the same?
For sure.
The biggest thing, but I really enjoyed his film, and I really hope he has a good week down there.
Yeah, no, I wasn't able to find a lot on him. But what my early impressions were like, this dude is athletic and he's big, like he's tall, he's built. And
he's so much bigger than everybody else.
Yeah.
FCS, but man, he's a dog, man. He gets after it.
Dog. And he was a quarterback, I believe, either the season before or maybe it was 2019, and he was insane in terms of rushing. Like he kind of looked like Tim Tebow out there with how he was putting up rushing touchdowns, man. It was interesting for sure. But yeah, this linebacker group, it's really interesting. I think there's some good kind of mid-round guys. Like I really like Brian Asamoah out of Oklahoma. He's kind of more of like a hybrid linebacker, dime linebacker / strong safety. Like I kind of like compare him to like if DJ Swearinger like just went to go play linebacker full time, like that's what you're kind of getting. Like this hothead, this missile who just flies around the field. And he's actually better than Swearinger in coverage. Actually, that's probably the best thing about Asamoah. So I really like him as a coverage linebacker. I like Terrell Bernard, just a really aggressive downhill linebacker. Damone Clark was really good if you want kind of like a Sam who's just going to take on blocks and flow to the run really quickly. Devin Lloyd's obviously the top dog in this class. Who else? Chad Mumma. Everyone loves Chad Mumma. They're saying he's better than Logan Wilson. I think Logan Wilson's better, but I think I was just really high on Logan Wilson as well. I don't see it as much with Mumma, but I do think he's an interesting early day 3, late day 2 type of guy. Tyndall's really interesting. I think he's raw and he's going to be kind of limited in how you use him, but that dude is explosive.
He's got those arms that are like 400 feet long, and
it's crazy.
Got crazy length.
Crazy. Last guy I'll bring up as my sleeper is Jojo Doman out of Nebraska. He's more of kind of just like a dime linebacker. You just bring in on clear passing downs, but that man can cover. He's got the safety background, and it makes sense. Like you see the ball skills, you see the fluidity. So I like him a lot. All right, let's move on to cornerback. I also like Sterling Weatherford just for the same reasons. They have him listed as a linebacker. He played a lot of safety in college, but he's really interesting as well. Cornerbacks. Who stood out to you the most, Zach?
Oh, man, I love this corner class that's going to be down here. I guess my hot take, honestly, is the American team's corners, I think, are probably going to have the best week of any corner group that we've ever seen down there.
Maryland's?
No, American team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, American team. So it has Mccreery, Goodrich, Kendrick, Taylor Britt, Alontae Taylor. I think those guys are going to have a lot of success against who they got down here. They got Calvin Austin, Reggie Roberson, Danny Gray, Tolbert, Jones, Trey Turner, Drummond. I think they're going to have a really good week against those guys. I like those receivers, but I mean, I got to talk about my top guy. It's Roger Mccreery. Roger Mccreery is a dog. We talked about him a little bit. Me and my buddy Jonathan Hagler. And Hagler actually, I don't want to spoil his ranking or anything, but Hagler has him as his cornerback 2 in this class. Compared him to Trey White. I don't necessarily see Trey White when I talk Mccreery, but I see a really good corner. He just gets after it. He's a guy who throughout his whole college career, he was always asked to go up against the top receiver. If it's Jamar Chase one game, the next game it's one of those Bama receivers. Dotson this past year, it's Burks this past year. I mean, he always drew that matchup, never backed down, always made it a fight. I mean, Dotson, I feel like he locked down Dotson for pretty much that entire game. He had a really good game against Dotson. I think Mccreery is just that type of guy who excels in the NFL. He's just so battle tested, a good athlete. He can do kind of whatever a team asks of him. So I'm a huge Roger Mccreery fan. Like he's going to be like a first round grade type guy for me. And I think he's going to go down here and have an outstanding week and kind of solidify himself in the eyes of a lot of scouts.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. He's definitely the top dog. I don't see Trey White as much because I feel like he's more of a man guy. But I actually saw, where is he? There he is. I saw a little bit of Marshawn Lattimore. He graded out really highly for me, 55. So first round pick. I see kind of like you said, like he's battle tested and he'll follow guys around the field. And so that reminds me of like Marshawn Lattimore with his ability to follow guys around the field, playing man, get up in your face, bump and run, and have the athletic ability to, you can just put him on island and you can trust him. Like he's not getting beat deep either. Like, and that Jahan Dotson game really, really solidified it for me. I mean, I know for you, you said you don't really, his speed is maybe not elite, but I thought it's one of the best in the class. And so for Mccreery to be able to,
Dotson could not get where he wanted down the field against Mccreery. And I think Mccreery is a little slower than Dotson. I think Dotson has a little bit of the speed advantage, but Mccreery did a great job of just neutralizing that the entire game.
Yeah.
It was a really good watch there.
Yeah, he combines, athleticism with physicality, just dog, like you said. Like he's got really good movement skills. So and they played him a lot more. Like I know the year before he was playing a lot more man, and this year now he's playing a lot more off zone. So he's showing that he can do a little bit of everything. He's pretty scheme versatile. I love him in a man scheme, but yeah, I wouldn't say like Marshawn Lattimore in terms of like what Lattimore was like a top 12. Like I think he was like a consensus like top 10 pick guy. So I wouldn't say that high, but kind of the skill set, body type, athleticism, that's kind of where I see Mccreery. In terms of other guys in this group, sleepers, like this group has a lot of interesting like 6'2 plus guys.
They're all big, man. They're all big. I mean, what is it on the American team? They have Alontae Taylor, Cam Taylor-Britt. I think they have Tariq Woolen too. I mean, they got some big dudes at corner, and they're all fairly good athletes too.
That's the crazy thing. They can all move. They're all pretty fluid. I really like a Caleb Evans out of Missouri. Cam Taylor-Britt as well, like you said. Just the ball skills on that guy. I mean, crazy. Who did I want to bring up? I want to bring up Marcus Jones because I feel like he's one of the only kind of pure slot guys. I mean, he's 5'8", and I kind of compare him to a guy I used to love at a few draft classes ago out of Louisiana Tech, Amik Robertson. Yeah. I mean, that guy was a dog, and that's what Jones reminds me of. Just a big hitter. Like he wants to get involved in the run game. Freak athlete. I mean, he does it. He's a return specialist. They give him the ball on offense as well. He's a Houston guy, so I know everyone watching this is a fan of Marcus Jones. I graded him out as a second round pick, but I don't think that's where I would actually take him, just because he is pretty much a nickel only guy. So more later day 3 for me. But I think he's a guy, he might not stand out in the Senior Bowl because of like the one-on-ones and how that's kind of tailored more to guys who are really refined with their technique. And I don't really think that's where Jones really is right now. But I mean, in terms of potential, that guy, it's through the roof with him. So I really like Marcus Jones. Kobe Bryant has the best name in the draft. So I got to bring him up. I love him. But let's close it out here, Zach, with the safety group. You're still all good for time, by the way?
Yeah, we're good right now.
Okay, beautiful. Safety group. I don't know if I have everyone here because there's no way there's only 8 safeties or 6 safeties. So I don't know, but there's some guys I really like. I love the Baylor guys. Who stands out the most to you, Zach?
Yeah, Petrie is a blast. Jalen Petrie is awesome. He's so fun to watch. I could just talk about him for days, but I want to talk about Joseph Kirby. From Illinois, because he's a guy who's starting to get, his name's starting to heat up a little bit. I think Dane Brugler is really talking high on him lately, but he's kind of that guy who can be a huge riser. I mean, he could be a center fielder type and kind of rangy and move along back end, but he's also got the size and physicality to come down and play in the box a little bit. In a safety class where I haven't studied the safety class too deep, I don't think it's that great of a safety class from what I've seen though. I think he's a guy who with a really, really good week could propel himself up quite a bit in this class. So good athleticism, good range, good size, will come downhill. I think he's going to make a name for himself down there from everything I've seen.
Yeah, and he's an Illinois guy. And I think Lovey might have been there when he was still there.
He had to have been, right? Lovey was there, 2-3 years ago? I mean, unless we transferred in, he would have to have been there.
Yeah, so Texans+Colts fan, definitely look out for him because people love to draft guys that they know, that they have connections with. And so
they do.
It's definitely an easy connection there for the Texans if they keep Lovey, or the Colts if they pick him up. My guy out of this class is JT Woods. He's the other Baylor safety. And when I was watching for Petrie and I was watching for Bernard on that Baylor defense, I think he's 22. That's his jersey number. He kept coming up, and I just kept saving all these clips of him saying, safety 22, interception, safety, 22, big hit. Like he just kept making plays. And those are the type of guys that when you're not even watching for them and they're standing out on the film for you, that's when you kind of know like, hey, we got something here. Let's dive a little bit further into him. And so he's 6'2". He's got great size. He plays a lot of center field, a lot of deep free safety. And he's a ball hawk, man. He is really, really a ball hawk. I think he had 6 interceptions this year and 5 interceptions the year before. He tied for first in the entire FBS in terms of most interceptions. And so Woods is a really, really interesting guy for me. I think he's got great instincts. He reads the quarterback's eyes really well, and he's able to jump routes because of that play speed and the ability to recognize passing concepts. So I like Woods. He's also a pretty solid tackler where he's not afraid to tackle. A lot of those, kind of the worry about those like ball hawk and free safeties is that they're afraid to tackle and they're soft, but that's not it with him. So I think he's another guy, like you said, who these ball hawks that can raise their stock a lot down in Mobile. So that's it. I think out of the safety class, I want to get your thoughts actually on Brian Cook before we head out, because I'm seeing all this hype for Brian Cook, and when I watched him, I didn't really see it with him. I don't know. I didn't think he played that fast. I didn't think his ball skills were all that great. I mean, he was an aggressive tackler, but he also missed a lot. What are your thoughts on Cook? I'd love to pick your brain on him.
I don't think I've watched enough of him to really have an opinion, but I'm trying to think. Was he the guy who I don't see him on the roster here. Where?
Oh, he might have been
the Georgia guy though.
He's a Cincinnati guy.
Cincinnati guy. Okay, I was like, I knew he was in one of those games there. Yeah, I remember I wasn't super impressed. He was kind of clunky to me from what I remember. I don't want to be too critical of a guy that I'm not 100%.
Yeah, that's fair.
Remember watching, but yeah, I don't really, honestly, like the Cincy DBs, I wasn't super. I think I'm lower on every Cincinnati defensive back than the consensus. I like Kobe Bryant probably, a good bit, but Cook just kind of really didn't do it for me. I think he was really good in that scheme. I think they kind of did a good job with him, but I didn't really see anything special there.
Okay, yeah, okay, we're on the same page. I think he is actually off the roster now when it got updated, so it doesn't matter.
Not seeing him here. I don't see many safeties at all on this roster.
Right? It's really odd. Let's end it with Jaquan Brisker. Micmac wants to know. Talk about Brisker. A lot of people have him as like the second best safety in this class. I don't know if I'm ready to give him that title. He's good. He's athletic. He's a big hitter. He's got some good ball production. But I don't know. To me, he didn't really stand out too much. I think he's kind of one of those guys who like he's versatile, but he doesn't really stand out in one area. What are your thoughts on Brisker, Zach?
Yeah, again, I haven't really stacked all the safeties together because it's not really my position to focus this year, but I'm with you. I didn't, a guy like Petrie, for instance, he stands out because, he's always up around the line of scrimmage and he's lighting people up. Just a really, really fun player. And then the other guys we talked about, Kirby stands out because he can kind of do it all. Woods because of his ball hawking ability. Brisker didn't really stand out too much to me. He, I don't want to say a jag because he's obviously a good player, but from when I watched him or when I watched him in the periphery, I just kind of saw a guy. I have to really study him and really stack him to see, but round one buzz and all that, I didn't really see much that led to that.
I don't see it either. But all right, we went through every single position group. We talked a little bit about the Texans head coach search early in the stream. If you guys want to check that out, definitely just replay it. Any final thoughts on the Senior Bowl before we wrap this up, Zach?
No, good luck to you going down there. It's a fun experience, and I'm excited that you get to have it. And then Ryan also mentions down here in the chat the HBCU Bowl. It's going to be, I think it's a combine is what they're doing for the HBCU players. Really, really cool experience that they're doing down there for that. A couple really interesting guys. A guy that I really like is a guy who is coming. He came from Houston and went to Jackson State this past year. Keith Corbin III was a 1,000-yard receiver for them. So definitely watch for him and see how he runs. I think, did Ezzard get an invite from? I think Jacquez Ezzard got an invite from Sam Houston State too. If he did, watch for him because he's a freak show. One of my favorite dudes. But But yeah, HBCU Bowl is gonna be a blast. Okay. So there's a Legacy Bowl too. Okay, I knew that there was a combine this weekend with it. But yeah, I'm really happy the Senior Bowl is doing something with that, and getting these HBCU players more propelled up there instead of it just being like, oh, we have our one HBCU guy in the Senior Bowl. Now it's okay. We could showcase all these players because there is a lot of talent at HBCU schools, and I'm glad that they're being propped up there.
Absolutely. Yep. I completely agree with you. I think it's gonna be a super fun week, man. I cannot wait. It's gonna be just a dream come true. So I can't wait. But yeah, thank you, Zach, for joining us again. We're gonna have to do these more often as we get closer and closer to the draft. Because I know it's not the most exciting year for you guys with the Colts not having the first round pick. I got to rub that in your face just because the Texans finally have a first round pick, but it's going to be an exciting year for us. So thank you once again, man. If you guys want to see Zach's stuff, read his articles, read his breakdowns. He's doing a lot of draft primers for seem like fits with the Colts. But I've been reading every single one, and the information that he gives you, like, it's still very applicable to any team that you follow, especially the Texans. So I would definitely check that out. His link to his Twitter's in the description, and that's where you can find all of his great work. But thank you once again, Zach, for joining. We'll talk soon. And thank you to everyone in the stream for coming through. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. That's going to do it for me. Enjoy the rest of the week. I'll try and bring you all a lot of content next week at the Senior Bowl. So that's it. Take care. Enjoy the weekend. And do not forget. Do not forget, the film don't lie.